confessor of Louis XIV for 34 years. He was such an attentive listener and heard so much that the leading cemetery in Paris was named in his honor.
Lamb, Charles, one of those immortals who forgot his life of tears to place smiles on paper.
Langtry, Mrs., the Sarah Bernhardt of England, less considerable talent. Ambition, those old-time lovers.
Laocoon, a Trojan priest who suffered with delirium tremens. Together with his sons, he posed for his statue while encumbered with a bad attack. Address, Vatican, Rome.
Laurie, Annie of Maxwelton. The only woman in history who had a brow like a snowdrift. Also the only good-looking lassie in Scotland to whom Burns did not write a few poems. Elle was engaged to be married. No record of the ceremony can be found.
Law, Andres Bonner, a Scotchman who gave up the iron business to become a mere member of Parliament, is said to have spoken on Irish questions. Ambition, unknown. Recreation, travel, except in the south of Ireland. Address, Parliament. This will probably hold good for several editions of Who Was Who. Clubs, Conservative, of course.
Law, mother-in, no relation of the above. A much-abused ancient whose life and story has been written by malicious biographers. In reality, Law was a kind soul who invited us to dinner, permitted the gas to be turned down, and always knocked before she came into the room. Later she wiped the dishes, took care of her grandchild, baby, helped pay the bills, and told the neighbors what a fine son-in-law she had. Ambition, daughter. Recreation, our house. Address, our house most of the time. Clubs, suffrage. Editor's note. The editor will not be held responsible for the accuracy of the above.
Lawson, Thomas W., Justice Squealer.
Leda. See mythology books, paintings, and statuary. Also Jupiter, Castor, and Pollux.
Lee and Perkins, discoverers of Worcestershire sauce and royal saucerers to the king.
Lihar, Frank, the man who assisted the Merry Widow to make her debut. Also was the press agent for Mr. Maxim of Paris. Ambition, to find another widow.
Leonora. Became famous because she had a lover who left her with a good song.
Leopold, king of the Congo and Belgium, has not been dead long enough for historians to make him famous. Ambition. Song, women, and wine. Recreation. Wine, women, and song. Address. Several in Brussels. Epitaph. Quantum mutatis ab illo.
Liberty. A huge lady who guards New York Harbor and welcomes Italy and Poland to the United States.
Limburger, of Germany. Manufacturer of a self-advertising cheese.
Lipton, Sir Thomas, a knighted Irishman who advertised tea with shamrocks, and one of the men of his race who did not enter politics or the police force. Ambition, that cup.
Liszt, Frank, a piano player who wore long hair, wrote music, and played the piano.
Lloyd, the man who will insure anything except the prospects for the sale of this book.
Lorelei, said to be a beautiful German lady who always hides herself when the tourist goes down the Rhine.
Lot, Mrs. Lot's husband.
Lot, Mrs., the only woman who had an inquisitiveness which became practical. She also was considered one of the salt of the earth.
Louis I, 778 to 840, called the Debonair. Introduced cafes into France. Put the is in Paris.
Louis II, 846 to 849, introduced chorus girls into France. Patron of cafes.
Louis III, 882 to 936. Introduced champagne into France. Continued the works of his predecessors.
Louis IV, 936 to 954. Introduced high heels. Continued the work of his predecessors.
Louis V, 966 to 987. Introduced absinthe.
Louis VI, 1106 to 1137. Enlarged the works of his ancestors. Started pre-tango dancing.
Louis VII, 1137 to 1180. Fought Germany. Inaugurated the French menu.
Louis VIII, 1187 to 1196. Introduced the words Allah and dressmakers into Paris.
Louis IX, called the Saint, 1215 to 1263. Was a good Louis. Fought the Turks and was taken prisoner. His subjects thought 7 million francs worth of him. Was awarded his halo for work in the Crusades. Not a patron of his ancestors. Very unpopular in Paris.
Louis X, 1289 to 1316. Reopened cafes. Introduced the taxicab. Very popular.
Louis XI, 1423 to 1483. Fought England and died too soon to hear of the discovery of the United States.
Louis XII, 1462 to 1515. Was king when the United States were discovered.
Louis XIII, 1601 to 1643. Permitted Cardinal Richelieu to king for him. Was a patron of cafes, champagne, and Paris in general.
Louis XIV, called the Grand, 1638 to 1715. Furniture builder, salon decorator, wig maker, and constructor. Also assisted Paris in acquiring her reputation. Built Versailles, the Louvre, and Napoleon's tomb. He was the man who captured Alsace-Lorraine from Germany. See Napoleon III. Motto, I am the State. Ambition, Strauss waltzes at Versailles. Recreation, dancing and attending to affairs of state. Address, Versailles.
Louis XV, 1710 to 1774. Called a bird. He lived during the reigns of Queens Pompadour and Du Barry.
Louis XVI, 1754 to 1793. A Louis who continued the traditions of his ancestors, but married Marie Antoinette, introduced the turkey trot and the Salome dance at Versailles. While his subjects were starving, he ate pâté de foie gras. They objected and carried his white wigginess to Paris, where he ended his reign. Ambition, to have been any one of his ancestors, even number 9. Recreation, short walks in the jail yard. Address, not permitted to receive letters. Epitaph, easy falls the head which wore a crown.
Louis XVII, 1785 to 1795. The only Louis who did not live long enough to have the good times of his ancestors, and the only Louis for whom the world has a word of sympathy.
Louis XVIII, 1775 to 1824. Called the Last. He was the Louis who got back on the job after the dizziness of the Revolution and Napoleon had subsided.
Lover, T.H.E. Conqueror of worlds, architect of castles, lunatic and saint. Spent early days only in living. In young manhood he met her. From that moment all other hers he had known became lemons. Lover was an expert prevaricator. Polished shoes, dressed neatly, shaved every day, and never ate onions. Spent evenings at her house. Detested gas or electric lights. Was fond of the fireplace and hands. Quarreled occasionally. Spent salary for theater tickets, candy and flowers. Walked on air. Had a terrible time keeping away from his friends who wanted him to have a good time. One night, her looked wonderfully beautiful. Lover said some things. He could not keep quiet.